Good morning and welcome everyone to our webinar. My name is Karen Hamill and I'm with HalenHardy. Today we are going to look at 8 pollution prevention solutions. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, we are streaming this presentation live on YouTube. So if you do have any problems with the streaming quality of this presentation through Teams, feel free to jump over there for it. And also, after the webinar, we will be sending you a link that contains a copy of this presentation as well as a link to obtain a certificate of attendance if you would like to do that. If you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to add those to the chat and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. Again, I'd like to welcome each of you and I thank you all for spending a little time with us today. And let's go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to be talking about some pollution prevention solutions that can help you and your facility with your stormwater pollution prevention plan, especially when you look at your best management practices. So we're not going to be able to cover everything that you can possibly do. So we focused on some of the things that you can do that are common to most facilities. We know that each stormwater pollution prevention plan is unique, and we know that each individual facility has their own individual and unique challenges. But these are things that when we are visiting with customers and as we go all over different kinds of facilities and different venues, these are things that we see most commonly, and they're the things that we see a lot of people struggle with because they are the things that take a little more time and sometimes don't have to. So we're going to look at these most common problems: sheens on water, sheens on hard surfaces, how to take care of those, some different solutions there, secondary containment areas, and spill response. So let's go ahead and get started with those. First of all, when you look at your stormwater pollution prevention plan, your best management practices, or BMPs, are going to be outlined there. And these are the things that you tell your governing agency you're going to do to help prevent pollution from leaving your facility. So with these, you do have a lot of liberty when you're making your stormwater pollution prevention plans or when you're reviewing those plans to upgrade those or change those and make those things manageable for your facility. There isn't anything within the regulation that says you must do X, Y, and Z. You have to do something. You have to be making those best efforts. However, it's up to you to decide what's going to work best for your facility and how you're going to do that. So you choose those BMPs. And when you choose those, choose them wisely because they are something that you are held accountable for. So make sure that when you are selecting those or when you're reviewing your plan and upgrading your plan, that you do choose BMPs that are going to be something that your people are able to take care of, that you're able to do, and you're able to do consistently throughout the term of your permit. Next is to look for those solutions that people will use. I kind of spoke to this a little bit already. What is your workforce? What are your employees most likely to be able to accomplish? There are tons of stories that I could tell about people who bought the most expensive system out there. They bought a big fancy tool or a big fancy apparatus, and it's supposed to do all these kind of wonderful, crazy, elaborate things, but nobody knew how to use it. Nobody knew how to work it. It was hard to maintain. It was hard to keep all of the calibrations in balance, whatever those stories happen to be. And they're things that we see a lot of times, that people will be lured into purchasing something because it promises to do a lot of things. But if they don't take the time to learn how to use it, or the person who knew how to use it has retired, whatever the scenario may happen to be, it's no longer useful for them because nobody knows how to implement that solution. So we're going to look at solutions that anyone can implement, solutions that people are going to be able to do in a timely fashion, things that aren't going to take people away from their regular jobs for hours or days at a time to implement them. And finally, one of the third truths is that your pollution prevention solutions, your best management practices, don't need to be complicated. They don't need to be expensive. They should be things that are not going to break the bank for you. They should be things that you can implement easily on a routine basis and that anyone within your production staff can take care of. So let's look at a few of those today. The first one that I'm going to focus on is sheens. Sheens can happen anywhere. They happen on land. We see the bright rainbows, especially when it's a cloudy, overcast day, especially right after it has just rained. We also see them on water, and they often take the form again of a rainbow, or they could be cloudiness in the water, depending on the type of oil and how thick a sheen is. So this is a picture of Benjamin Franklin. And he was the first to, at least the first person that I have found who acknowledged how far a small amount of oil can travel. So in 1972, he actually conducted an experiment where he put a teaspoon of oil onto a body of water out in Pennsylvania, actually, and he watched how it spread. And it was able to spread easily over an acre, and you could still see the visibility of that oil sheen over half an acre of land. So from that, from how many centuries ago now, we knew that oil could spread that far. We had determined that oil could spread that far in water, and it does the same thing on land as well. So when we're looking at oil sheens, they can be a big problem for us, and there are a number of ways that they can be managed. They can be managed with chemicals. So you can actually get sprays that you can spread over the sheen to dissipate it. However, in a lot of municipalities, the use of dispersants or the use of chemicals to handle sheens is often very heavily regulated, and usually you're limited on what you can do because some of those chemicals can disrupt the ecosystems, especially in water. Another thing that you can do is to use bioremediation techniques. So they're actually little microscopic bugs that can be used to digest the oil either on land or water. Problem with those is that they work very slowly. So they're not something that can take care of an oil sheen instantly. Also, many of them are very dormant in cold climates. So they can actually die off in the winter, or they can be even slower than they normally are when it comes to remediation. So a technique that's well established, one that many people are using very successfully, but recognize those limitations if you are using them. Another thing you can use are this is a picture of our chamois roll, and this is a poly product that actually floats on water, can be used on land or water, and it specifically gets the sheen off of a surface, whether that's whether a land surface or a water surface. And this is one of the few products that we know in the absorbent category that is going to be able to do that and do it successfully. Most absorbents in the marketplace that are marketed for oil on water or oil on land are going to be great at collecting a puddle of water, but they don't get that final sheen. So this is a product that might be able to help you, if those other technologies aren't working for you, to get that oil sheen off of land or water. The next common problem that I see people struggle with is having sheens in their secondary containment systems. And again, these are mostly going to be outdoor containment systems. So where you've got bulk tanks outdoors, or perhaps you've got a secondary containment system around a storage area that has drums or totes or other containers of those oil and fuel products. It rains, the rain comes down, maybe you had a valve or something that had a little bit of a leak in it, and now you've got a swimming pool full of mostly water and a little bit of a sheen on top. And this can be a problem for you because, of course, that water can't be discharged if it's got any kind of contaminant in it, including a sheen. So one solution that we found for, well, a couple of solutions, most common solution that people are still using for that is to bring in a vac truck or a pump truck and to pump all of that water off and manage it as oily water. Of course, then you've got to coordinate the truck. The truck has to come, and it can be very expensive to get rid of 300 or 400 gallons of water that just has a tiny amount of sheen on it. So the Drainiac product is a potential solution there for you that can save your people a lot of time and simplify that maintenance. This allows your rainwater to come out of your secondary containment systems and passively flow through an oil water separator that's going to collect any of that oil sheen that comes through and allow water to pass. Nice thing about that is that this can be installed in any of your secondary containment systems, and it runs 24/7. It will keep the water flowing through the system, prevent ice in the wintertime, and allow you to keep those systems clear and free of water. Also helps to prevent that breeding ground for mosquitoes, and it helps to prevent the number one problem with secondary containment systems, people leaving valves open. Think about it. If you've got a person who's in charge of clearing out 6 or 8 different sumps and they've got to go to different areas to open up the valve on each of those, it's easy to think that, okay, I'm going to open this valve and I'll come back in an hour or two after the water's drained and close it. Other things happen, tasks get mounted onto the day, and we never get back to turning that valve and closing it again at the end of the day. So this helps to prevent that and helps people to mitigate that. Also, when you look at EPA guidance documents for stormwater, one of the things that they do recommend is to send the water from your secondary containment sumps through an oil water separator. This helps to achieve that and helps to keep your facilities running, helps to keep all of those sumps free of the heavy waters that are coming when we do have this big storms or this big ice melts. The third thing you can do is look for ways when you are looking at your spill prevention plans and when you're looking at your spill response plans is to have an effective means to contain and confine your spills. Spill confinement is the act of stopping that spill from going any farther than it has already gone. So if you've got tanks or drums or equipment, whatever has leaked and whatever has caused a spill, what is the most effective way that you can use to keep that spill from getting to a drain, to keep that spill from getting into an environmentally sensitive area, from getting off of the pavement and into a waterway, whatever that scenario may be. Look for the areas where spills are most likely within your facility and look at your spill response plans. Do they address the ways that you are going to confine that spill and prevent it from spreading once it has been identified? So whether that's on oil or I'm sorry, whether that's on land or on water, there are different ways that you can do that. And socks are a common way to do it. This is an example of our husky strips, and these act like a sock. So they create a barrier that allows the oil to be absorbed and the water to flow through. So this is one way that you can do it, but make sure that you've got that method of confining that spill either on land, or here we're showing an example on water. This is our spill boa boom. Again, floating on water, containing that spill, keeping the spill from going any farther. Are your people trained to do that? Do they know how to do that quickly and effectively within your system? Are they comfortable doing that? Hopefully spills aren't happening a lot for you, and it's something that they aren't doing on a routine basis. So when it does happen, is this a skill that they have practiced and that they are comfortable doing? And the fourth one is to look at your storm drains. Storm drains are kind of that last defense before something leaves the facility in many cases, unless you've got a detention pond or another feature that you're using. Usually once it hits a storm drain, it's headed straight to a body of water, to a river, to a stream, to a lake, wherever that channel may lead. That storm drain is kind of that last ditch effort to keep your pollutants on your facility before they're discharged and before you've got to make costly reports and do a lot of costly remediation. So anything that you can do to defend those drains and keep pollutants out will help you manage that stormwater pollution prevention plan and help you minimize the amount of pollutants that are going into our navigable waters. Top 2 pollutants that leave our facilities are, number 1 is sediment. So this could be in the form of debris. This could be soil, that loose soil. It could be small shale and gravel. It could be trash and other debris that is accumulated. In the autumn, especially in the Northeast, we see those autumn leaves, like I show in the drain here. There are a lot of different things that can be collecting and getting into those storm drains. If you can manage those before they enter the drain, it's a lot faster and a lot easier than having to pull up that drain cover and dig out that sump or put something underneath the cover of that sump to manage that. So here's an example of our above drain filter. And what this does is allow the water to pass through, capture any trace amounts of oil that may have dripped from equipment, machines, tools, whatever you might have on the surface that leaks. and also capture any of that sediment and debris that's headed toward the drain. Nice thing about this is after the rain has passed, you can just sweep it up with a broom and or a shovel and collect it with a shovel or a dustpan, and you're good to go. It only takes a couple of minutes to do that versus having to get into the sump underneath the catch basin and dig all of that pollutant out. There we go. Slide wasn't going to advance. The next one is to take a look at your maintenance procedures. Are there things that you can simplify within your routine maintenance? So here I show some wrenches. And with these wrenches, you can see that most of them are unused, but that one that's kind of center left, that one gets some good wear. So if you're looking at this, and if somebody is less skilled with maintenance, how many of those wrenches would they go through before they got the one that they need to do the job? Do you have any jobs like that within your facility? Is there some guesswork that you can take out? Is there a way to make the maintenance tasks simpler? And that's kind of what we're looking at throughout the theme of this presentation is what can you do to simplify that work so that people can do it quickly, they can do it effectively and efficiently, and get back to the other duties that they need to get done for the day. So one of the things that you can do to minimize that guesswork is to standardize the things that you use every day. So one of those might be absorbents. So if you're looking at the different ways that you can simplify that is instead of having a multitude of things available, look at what you truly need to be prepared for spills or to be prepared for those maintenance tasks. Are people changing the oil in vehicles? Are people maintaining hydraulic cylinders? What exactly do they need to do that job? Do they need catch pans? Do they need drip pans? Do they need absorbents to clean their hands and to clean the parts afterwards? Whatever those things may be, make it simple for them and give them just what they need to do the job without having a lot of extraneous things that make them second guess and waste time to determine what exactly is needed for that. So having a little audit there can really help you to simplify those tasks and keep people moving without sacrificing pollution prevention. The next thing is to be prepared for spills ahead of time. So think about a time possibly that you have been at a restaurant and there's been a spill. Maybe a soda has spilled, or I don't know, you got soup and it has spilled on the floor. And you look around and there are no napkins anywhere. There's nothing to be had to clean up that simple little spill. The same thing happens in industry. When there's nothing to clean up that spill, what happens? Most likely people will leave that spill. If they can find napkins, if they can find paper towels, they'll clean it up. But if they can't, they kind of feel helpless and they're most likely to leave that spill. Same thing happens in the workplace. Same thing happens really anywhere that we go. If it's convenient, we're more likely to do it. So if we can be prepared for spills ahead of time, if we can supply our frontline workers, the people who are doing our work with the supplies that they need to take care of a spill, they're more likely to do it and to do it quickly so that the spill doesn't spread, so that they can confine it easily, and so that they can take care of it before it hits those drains and other environmentally sensitive areas. The nice thing is that spill kits are available for pretty much any kind of a spill, and they're available in sizes that allow them to be tucked in different places. An example of this is our pocket smoosh kit, and this is just a spill kit. It absorbs about 5 gallons and can be tucked under a seat or in a seat back pocket so that anybody in your fleet can be prepared for a spill, maybe a hydraulic line spill, or perhaps getting a spill contained from a saddle tank, or getting a spill contained from a backhoe, whatever that leak may be. This is something that's going to help them get that under control until other resources can be brought to the situation. So think about areas where your spills happen, where your spills could happen. Think about your different spill scenarios, perhaps over the past 5 years that have happened, and whether or not your frontline workers Now, these don't have to, and again, these probably aren't professional responders. This may not be, yeah, a fire department person, a volunteer firefighter who's used to cleaning up spills. Chances are that spill's going to be discovered by somebody who has had some training on cleaning up spills from whatever training that you had given them, but they're not a professional spill responder who's used to doing this all the time. So this gives them a tool, something that they can use immediately to help with that spill control without having to go look for a big kit. So look for those areas, look for ways that you can help them to manage those spills before they happen. The next item is to look at areas where you have drip pans. So this might be under faucets or valves or connections, anywhere that you've got piping, anywhere that you've got fluids being transferred. Where are your leaks and drips happening? It could be on equipment that is stored over the winter, whatever that scenario may be. If you're looking at those areas, perhaps you've got buckets kind of like the one on the left-hand side here that are collecting those oily leaks so that they don't get onto the ground. One of the biggest problems that we have found with that is that if those buckets aren't maintained regularly, they fill with rainwater when it rains, obviously when these are outside. And when that happens, the oil floats to the top and often overflows. And that can create problems for you because at that point, then you spend a lot of time digging out the shale or cleaning up the concrete underneath those drip pans. So look for ways that you can manage that. One of the solutions that we've created for that is to have our Spiltration Husky pan instead of those drip pans. Nice thing about these is that they can be weighted down with stones or rocks or a brick, whatever you might have on hand there. And they're going to stay in place and capture the oily leaks and allow the water, clean rainwater, to filter through. So this helps to maximize the amount of oil that you can collect while not having to run out and empty a bucket every time it rains to keep those things free of the rainwater so that they don't overflow. So look for these areas within your facility where you do have those pans and see if there might be a solution that's better for you and a lot easier for your people to maintain, a lot faster, and not having to deal with a lot of the oily water that comes along with traditional buckets. The final solution, the final tip of the day is to make sure that you've got your frontline crews trained. This is something that we can often overlook. We often assume that people will know how to do these things and that people will automatically be looking for these different solutions. And unless they've been taught to do so, they may not have that understanding of why things need to be done and how things need to be done. And the great thing is that for best management practices, these can often be incorporated into routine maintenance and other things that they're already doing. So this isn't necessarily a situation where you've got to bring people in and have them sit through a training or have them log through a training that is specific to the best management practices that are in your plan. Hopefully these things can all be simple tools that you can incorporate with your frontline crews so that they're able to do them as just a general part of their day and their business. And they're not things that are taking them a long time to implement and to accomplish. And they're taking away from the rest of their day. As these things are incorporated into their possibly weekly or monthly routines, they'll become more commonplace to them, and they're things that are going to become more of a second nature to them. And that's when you know that training has really succeeded with your crews. So when your people know about them and they understand those BMPs, they're going to be more likely to be able to prevent that pollution in the first place. So wrapping up, I hope that we've given you some new solutions that you're able to implement with your stormwater management plans. And hopefully when you are looking to upgrade those plans, you can look for those ways that are simple and easy to implement so that you're not spending a lot of time and a lot of money unnecessarily. And with that, I will look for any questions. Please feel free to put those in the chat. And I do see a question here. For the oil water separator drain filter, how should the PE address the deviation in an SPCC since the drain is not kept closed? Okay, so within that, there is a guidance document. And John, if you send me an email, I can send that to you. Within this document, it actually explains how within the secondary containment system, if you are sending that through an oil water separator, and the separator can be active or passive, that basically that oil water separation is a step within a process to allow that water to be drained and avoid that drain not being kept open. So instead of having a drain, basically you are sending that through an oil water separation process. And I will be glad to send that to you so that you can share that with your PE. And I will, John, I'll advance the slide here so that you've got my email address there. Okay, in an ideal scenario, how often would you retrain workers on the proper spill response action? Usually I incorporate my spill response into another training that I'm doing, and I usually do it annually. If you look at professional spill response teams, typically they're training quarterly, but these are spill professionals who are doing this on a regular basis. So they're looking for the newest ways. They're making sure that all of their emergency response skills are in place. And typically with your frontline workers, they're not doing this every day. So I usually look at doing this annually. If you're really ambitious about it, you might do it twice a year. One thing that you can do is look for a time when there is a spill and use that as an instructional time for your frontline workers. But if most often, usually what I'm seeing in facilities is they're doing that spill response training, just that incidental spill response training once a year. Okay, those are the only questions that I see right now. So with that, I do value your time and I thank you. Oh, here we go. Is there somewhere we can find pricing information on these? Absolutely. The information for these products is on our website. And if the prices are not shown there, or if you're ordering in bulk, Troy and Mike would be glad to help you with that. I see Lori has just posted the website there for you. Okay, it looks like we have gone through our questions. Again, I'd like to thank you all for your time, and our contact information is there, and we will be sending out a link to view this presentation and a link to grab a certificate of attendance if you need that. Thanks again, and I hope everybody has a great day. Stay safe and stay cool.